Hello and welcome back to the Crap My Kids Say podcast. Today we are scaring each other. We are telling each other scary stories, not so much in the dark, but it's dark outside and our whole house is dark and the kids are asleep and we got candles lit for ambiance and we got our beers and we're going to try to scare each other.
Yep. So, I just want to check and make sure everything's looking good. Yep. Okay. So probably a little bit of disturbing content, I guess.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're trying to scare each other, so
yeah, it might get a little spooky.
I think that's about it. We each researched a.
What was that?
My
water.
water.
Your water.
Yeah. We each researched a story that is someone's true story. It's not like a fictionalized account or anything.
No, these are not made up. These are 100% real.
Yep. So, I think you said you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then you can go first, scare me, and then I will get relief from being scared by scaring you. Yeah.
All right. So I am going to tell you about the Screaming House of Union, Missouri.
That makes sense.
And we've upgraded, before we get into the stories, we've upgraded. You can see we have some better mic stands, some pop filters, and then we've hooked up so that we can have the any music or anything play as we're recording and not have to put it in post.
Yeah. It's a pain.
Uh-oh.
What?
My phone's over there with the story.
Oh. You have to go get it.
Quick pause. Okay, sorry about that rattling. All right. So, let's talk about the Screaming House of Union, Missouri.
Okay.
In May 2001, recently single father Steven LaChance and his 3 children, 2 boys and a daughter, were in danger of becoming homeless as a lease on their current cramped apartment was up. After weeks of searching to find a good fit for his children that was also close to his new job, he finally caught a break.
A break.
Yeah, a real break. When he and his daughter went to the open house, they immediately knew they loved this house. All of the original woodwork was intact. Apparently our cat's trying to scare us. I don't know if that came through or not.
I thought I heard it in the...
Yeah, I kind of thought so too. Yeah, never mind that. Cherub wallpaper lined the upper perimeter of the living room, had a large kitchen and mudroom that led to the big backyard. The upstairs had a breezeway that could be accessed by all of the bedrooms.
Sounds nice.
Yeah, it's real nice.
Real nice.
The basement had a butcher's shower.
Okay, what is that?
That is a shower that they would have in farms after they were done slaughtering
animals
and butchering up the meat. They could get in there. They could hang the meat in there to wash it, and then they could also get in there to wash themselves.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of creepy.
Bizarre.
Yeah.
All right.
Different. And they also had a fruit cellar in the basement.
A food cellar?
Fruit cellar.
A fruit cellar?
Yeah.
So like a root cellar, basically?
Root cellar, I'm thinking,
okay.
yeah.
Which are, they're just creepy. Like, we have a root cellar, and I literally never go in there. I've been in there one time.
Yeah. The size and price of this home was right, and Steven immediately filled out an application. There was a lot of people at the viewing of the house that day, and he had his doubts on whether he would get the house. But a week passed, and he eventually got the call that the house was his and his family's. What are they doing out there?
I don't know. That was a weird sound.
The lease was signed and the family began to move on Memorial Day weekend.
That's the same weekend we moved.
I know, right? We moved into this house on Memorial Day weekend. As the move-in process was finishing up, Steven was getting the last just a couple items out of the moving truck, and a car drove by, slowed, and someone yelled out the driver's side window, "Hope you get along okay in that house," and sped off.
I'd be like, what on earth are they talking about?
The LaChance's first night in their new home came and went. No issues or anything. As they woke up the next morning and started their first morning and first day in their new house, Steven noticed something a little strange. All of the home's interior doors had hook and eye latches on the doors.
Yeah.
Yep. But they weren't on the inside of the rooms. They were on the outside of the rooms.
Like you were locking something
as if to lock
in.
someone in, not someone out of the rooms.
That's definitely creepy.
Yeah, it's a little creepy. The first incident happened in the living room. Steven wanted to hang a large framed picture of two angels. His daughter thought it would go well with the cherub wallpaper that was at the top of the room.
Right.
He hung the picture, turned to walk away, and just heard a giant crash. And he turned and looked. The picture frame fell.
Right, which that by itself could just be, weird, could have hung it wrong,
Yep.
It could be explained away easily.
Yep, could be.
Could be, yeah.
The first time.
Yes.
After 3 tries of trying to hang the picture... Sorry. He repeated the process 3 times until the last time he shouted no one, "Stay there, damn it." As he was finishing up with the picture, his daughter called him to the front porch where her and her brothers were playing. As he stepped onto the front porch, his daughter said, "Sit down and watch this, Dad." "Watch what?" he replied. As he was sitting down on the top step, no sooner had he sat down on the top step, his daughter pointed to an elderly man walking down the sidewalk on their side of the street, and as he started nearing their property line, he stopped and crossed the road.
Uh-huh.
So the family sat out and on the porch all afternoon, finished out their afternoon playing on the porch, and every passerby, by the time either direction they got to their property line, would cross to the other side of the street.
That's weird.
Yeah.
I'd be like, what is wrong with our house?
Yeah.
Maybe they're just not friendly neighbors and
So
away.
yes. And that's what as they were getting inside and as they were heading inside for the evening, Steven tried to reassure his children and I think himself a little bit that they just weren't comfortable with new neighbors.
Yeah, just not friendly. It's okay. It's all right.
As the family went inside, had dinner, went to bed, and the night passed with no issues. Sunday, so this was Friday, Saturday.
We're on Sunday.
Of Memorial Day weekend.
Yes.
The kids went to church with Steven's parents. When they got back, he had promised they would set aside the rest of the day to work in their yard. This was a really big deal for the family. They had never had a yard before. They'd always lived
that's exciting.
in a house. They'd always lived in apartments, and they were going through a lot. Like, his wife just up and left.
And left the kids and stuff.
And yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so this was something that they all thought they would enjoy. This was...
thought they would enjoy.
This was something normal for their lives for once.
Right. Normal.
They mowed the grass and cleaned out leaves from under the front porch steps. Steven did notice that even though it was the beginning of summer, all of the trees were shedding their leaves like it was fall.
That's weird.
Yeah. Maybe some cause for concern, maybe. You know, you never know.
You got some sort of bug or something on your tree.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. So after a while, he asked his youngest son if he can go in to the basement and bring up a
Oh, basement. That's where all the bad stuff happens.
Yeah. Asks if he can bring up a hose. He's going to spray off the sidewalks and kind of give the house a little bit of a power washing. It was a really weathered, white looking house and looked pretty grimy. No one had lived there for a while. It had been sitting empty.
Oh my gosh, this is like our house. Except our house isn't on it.
You hope.
It's not.
Sorry about that. A few minutes passed, and he heard just a blood-curdling scream coming from inside the house. As he got inside, he found his son shaking and crying in a puddle of urine.
Oh my gosh.
What's wrong? What happened? Steven shouted. The child looked up in fear and said, "Something chased me up the basement steps, Daddy."
Ooh, that'd be scary.
"What chased you?" he asked. His son replied, "I don't know, but it was big." Steve and his other two children went down and checked the basement to see, what's going on. Is this something to be concerned about? They didn't find anything. All they found was the hose laying on the steps.
Weird.
Yeah. Got his son cleaned up. Everybody had dinner.
I feel bad for the kid. That's sad.
It is sad. And Monday, Monday came and went. No school on Monday. And Tuesday they started back to school, which would be what would be their last 4 days of school before summer vacation. Each day they would leave. Everybody would leave together. Steve would take the kids to school, drop them off, and go to his job. But each day when the family would return home from work and school, every light in the house was on. He blamed his children for forgetting to turn the lights off in the morning.
But he's going to feel like crap when it comes around. That's not them.
Yeah. So finally, the last day of school, Friday comes around. They get home, and all the lights are on again. Irritated and probably a little bit curious, he had the boys stay in the car. So, a little clarification, the daughter is the oldest, and then the two boys are middle and youngest.
Okay.
So he had the oldest boy stay with the youngest brother, and had his daughter, who was, the children weren't named.
Oh, got ya.
And anything, I looked through Steven's actual story.
And he didn't say the name of the kids.
And then any other stories I tried to look up, nothing had the children's name, just that the daughter was the oldest and then the two boys were younger.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I think there was a pretty big... I'm sorry if our cat's coming through on this. We'll have to lock him in a room the next time we do this.
Yeah, no doubt.
So yeah, the daughter's the oldest. He took her inside to investigate to see, what was going on. Searching the house, they found nothing out of place. "Daddy, it's kind of cold in here," his daughter said from the living room. What was she talking about, Stephen thought. Sweat was pouring from his body. However, when he stepped into the living room, he could feel the temperature drop by about 30 degrees.
That's a pretty big drop.
Yeah. This was the first time he felt a presence in the house, something like an electric current running through his body. As the feeling passed, he and his daughter watched the thermostat needle raise back up.
Oh, that'd be really creepy.
Yeah. That night he had everyone sleep in his bed.
Probably smart.
Yeah.
I would too.
Yep. So then Saturday passes. No, nothing happens. Sunday, that week, so Sunday night, that next week, he had to go on a business trip.
Uh-huh.
So he was making plans for his kids to stay with his mom and dad as he went to Indianapolis for his business trip. As he was telling his kids the plan, the children were standing kind of like... I always thought a family room and a living room were the same thing. But apparently they're not.
Yeah, they're not.
So they're like standing I think the layout of the house is like kind of like an entryway, a family room, a living room, and then the kitchen.
Gotcha.
So Steven's kind of over by the entranceway.
Uh-huh.
The kids are in the family room with their back to the living room and back to the kitchen.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yep. So there's a little, kind of got to set that up.
Okay.
As they're standing in the family room with their backs to the living room, suddenly Steven sees over their shoulders just a glimpse of something. But not something, someone.
Be creepy.
At the entrance of the kitchen, a solid dark figure of a man with a gray smoky mist twirling about him. Steven looked away and tried to rationalize what he was seeing and keep his children from looking behind them.
Yeah, that would be my biggest concern at that point.
Seconds passed, and he looked back up, expecting the figure to be gone, but it was still there.
Oh my gosh, that would
And it began to move.
Die.
It moved in the living room and paused. The figure stood there for what seemed to be an eternity, before fading into nothing.
Oh my god, nope.
Steven, regaining his nerve, take a minute, stood up and said, "You know what? Let's go get a soda and stay at Grandma and Grandpa's house a night early."
We're gonna leave now.
The younger two boys were really excited about this, but his daughter, she kind of knew something was up.
Yeah, when you're the oldest, you kind of catch on.
You catch on. Steven tried to assure them, "Come on, it'll be fun." Steven got his car keys off the coffee table and tried to get his children out of the house. As everyone was out of the house, I'll get quicker with this. And this is going to totally ruin it. But got his car keys. As everyone was out of the house and Steven turned to lock the door behind him, a loud, blood-curdling scream. If I would have been able to do that sneakier, that probably would have been pretty good. Came from deep inside the house. The scream could be heard throughout the neighborhood. All the neighborhood dogs began to bark and howl. "Get in the car!" Steven screamed at his children. All four of them sprinted to the car, and he sped out of the driveway. As they were driving away, Steven's youngest son said, "Daddy, the basement monster is standing in the upstairs window."
Oh, hell no. I mean, we're not going back home, guys.
Steven looked back only to see the dark figure he had seen in the family room in the upstairs window watching them leave.
That would be so scary. Oh my god, I would die.
Yeah.
I would die. I'd be like, all right, we're going to hire movers to take all our stuff out of the house.
You'd think.
We're never going back.
You'd think that would be enough, but the family stayed at Steven's parents' house that night, and Steven left for his week-long business trip the next morning.
I bet he was so happy. He said, I will stay at any hotel.
Anywhere.
Anywhere.
Friday night, he returns home from his business trip, and he gets his kids and heads back to the house.
Oh, I bet that was just... Ugh.
Yeah, I mean, he had a whole week away from it. So he could really no, that wasn't...
Right.
That wasn't real. That was all in my head. It was all a fluke.
Try to just write it off.
Right.
Okay, that didn't happen. I'm psychotic. It's fine.
So he takes a long weekend vacation kind of thing. He takes Friday off so that he can have a little extra time with his kids from being away for a week. Mm-hmm. While they're have their time off, they decided that there was a shed on the property, and they said they were going to clean that out on one of their days. Mm-hmm. Hold on one second.
Yeah, we're going to have to do something with him, because he's just...
So I'm probably not going to be able to edit this out, but there's going to be a pause. Deal with us real quick. It'll be super quick, and we'll get back into the story, but our cat is annoying me.
He's being so obnoxious. I don't know if it's coming through or not.
Yeah, I don't know.
On here. Hard to tell.
Yeah.
He's literally just sitting outside of the door, meowing as loud as he possibly can. And he's running. And he caught him. And there goes the dog. Yeah, he was being just, oh my gosh, so annoying.
Yeah, I feel like that would have really distracted me as I got
I
to
know.
like the climax of the story. Yeah. All right. Back at it. Okay. So he gets back, has an extra day off of work. They're gonna clean out the
shed.
The
right
shed
in the backyard.
Yep. As they're cleaning out the shed, they start seeing boxes, and it's like got a lot of people's like personal effects, like photographs, tchotchkes, all kinds of stuff.
That's weird.
So he's like, "Yeah, this is pretty weird." Yeah. So Steven would call his mom every night after after he got the kids to bed. He would give her a call.
Was he like 100% honest with her about everything? Like,
yeah,
hey, there's something in my house.
Yeah. He told them when they went and stayed that night. He told them why they were there.
Okay.
So he tells her about the boxes in the shed, and she's like, "You need to call the landlady. You need to get like straightforward answers about this house."
Right. I would be very concerned at this point. Like,
yeah,
way concerned.
So Steven calls the landlady and has what he says is one of the most awkward phone calls of his life. So, little background, this landlady seems like a little loopy, like
not all quite there
Not
yet?
all quite there, maybe. Like, I guess she's like an old lady.
Uh-huh.
Maybe a little losing it, slipping. Gears are slipping a bit. Yeah.
Bit. Gotcha.
So he just straightforward asked her, has any other tenant mentioned anything about ghosts in this house?
Mm-hmm.
At first she was like, no. And then she's like, well, we had this one girl who was one of my tenants, and she said that her dad, the spirit of her dad, would come and visit her. She said some of those belongings are hers. And then goes on to tell Steven that she thinks that the girl was just crazy.
Oh, says the crazy person.
Yeah. She said that some of the items in the shed were hers.
Right.
But others belonged to a man that left the house in the middle of the night and never returned to get his belongings.
Wow, that really says something. That would be like red flag city for me.
Yeah. Let's just say it's a trend.
Yeah?
Yeah. The rest of the weekend comes and goes, nothing. Steven begins to think, you know what? This was all just a fluke. It was a one-off type of thing. Something was not happy about us here, but things seem okay now. Monday night, again, Steven calls his mom like he does, and he thought his children were upstairs playing in his room, and all of the interior doors of the house begin to rattle. He scolded the children, "Stop playing games!" He went back to his conversation. The doors began to rattle again. Louder and harder this time, though. Again, he yelled at his children. Uh-oh. It's a bad part about this. I lost. Again, he went to scold his children, but his daughter yelled, "I'm in my room reading and my brothers are sleeping in their room, Dad."
Like, oh boy.
This is where you could say shit hit the fan for the LaChance family. Some of the following events all of this part I took from Steven's story. He published in 2004.
Okay.
Some of the events are burned into his mind and he'll never forget. Others were just a blur of chaos. As soon as he heard his daughter's voice, he could feel the temperature drop in the house and the same electric feeling he had when he first saw the black figure of a man standing there. A horrible stench filled the room and then the screaming started again. Softly at first, but it started to grow louder and louder. He yelled to his mother on the phone, "We need to come. We need to come to your house again. He's back." Then the whole house began to shake and the screams intensified. He could hear something large coming down the stairs. The screams rose another notch. Now his daughter was screaming, "Daddy, what's happening?" The whole house felt alive. He ran up to the stairway to get his children out of the house. As he climbed the stairs, a new scream began. The scream of a child.
Ooh, that's creepy.
Yeah. He got to his daughter's room and tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. The screams and shaking of the house intensified even more. Steven slammed himself against his daughter's door again and again and again.
Ugh.
Finally, the door slammed open and his daughter was in shock. She was just gone. She wasn't there.
Yeah, I would imagine that'd be a tad bit traumatic.
Yeah. Steven yelled to his oldest son, "Take your brother and get out of the house, now!" He shook his daughter, trying to snap her out of her paralyzed state. When she finally returned to consciousness, he picked her up and ran to the door. As he was running to the front door, he could hear every other door in the house opening and slamming, opening and slamming. The floor shook, the windows rattled in their sills, the screams continued louder and louder. Steven could feel the black figure hot on his heels chasing him from the house.
Hell no. Like, that's for sure, like, never going back.
Yeah. He finally burst out the door onto the front porch and ran down the steps to the front lawn and into his car. He and his family got away. He parked at the top of a hill just outside of his neighborhood and looked back at the house. You could see, everyone in the vehicle could see the black figure going from room to room, searching from room to room over and over again. The lights flashed and the screams could still be heard. The dogs in the neighborhood were going crazy, but Steven and his family were finally safe.
Oh.
That was the last time Steven's children ever set foot in the house.
Smart.
Yeah. Steven would return to pack the family's belongings, but never by himself.
Oh, yeah. No. Hell no.
No.
I would not be going back there.
Mm-mm.
Like, I would literally, I don't care how much money it would take to hire people
Movers
to go do that job for me. There's no way I would go back.
So everyone, even that Steven brought with him to the house to help him get his family's things out, would experience something. Whether it was the screams, being shoved, pounding on the floor, lights flickering. Steven's brother took a picture. Steven's brother was into paranormal investigations.
Oh, I bet he loved their
And he brought a
house
camera
then.
and he started snapping pictures and took a picture of the root cellar, whatever you want to call it.
Probably depends on the area.
Yeah, I
live
think
in.
maybe this is like it's a fruit cellar. Up here it's I don't know. But so once the picture of the fruit cellar was developed, there was a face like coming out of the fruit cellar.
Do you have the picture?
I can find it. Yeah, I do have it saved.
Okay.
So yeah, pretty creepy. Steven moved, his children moved, life got back to normal. After about a month, a friend sent him an email, said, "Put John T. Crow, Union, Missouri, into your search engine.
Oh, boy.
A face came on the screen, a face Steven would never forget. The face of the black figure that chased him and his family out of their home.
Was he a serial killer?
He was a slave owner, and a very bad one.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, yeah, real bad person.
Yep.
Not a great guy.
As Steven looked more into the house, he found that the footprint of the current house was built on pre-Civil War slave quarters.
Oh.
500 feet away from the house was a Civil War cemetery.
Oh.
Across the street, a violent axe murder took place.
Oh my god.
Many say the ground the house is built on is poisoned with evil. The Catholic
Sounds
Church
like it.
eventually published a 159-page report that there was a heavy demonic presence in the house and many spirits.
Well, I mean, they did hear a little boy, so I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I want to know, why are there locks